Hello, guys. Thanks for joining us. Victory Day in Russia. What is it? Do you know? Have you heard of it before? Does your country celebrate it? I'm an American who's been living in Moscow for over 2 years. I came here 8 days before the special military operation, and this holiday was a new surprise to me, something that I've been quickly learning about, and I've been so touched by experiencing it this weekend I decided to bring some guests on that have experienced this holiday in Russia, in other cities. And before I bring them on, I want to show a quick clip to you guys.
Wow. Incredible.
Watch how synchronized they are. Feels warmer now.
All those brave young men.
Thank you so much.
Here for you, Natalia.
For us.
All right. Welcome to Expat American. I am the Expat American. Here are the handsome gentlemen for you for tonight, for this show. It is a holiday in Russia that I've heard is called the holiday with tears in our eyes because it is a victory. It is a celebration, but it's something that came at a great cost. And I have a faithful subscriber of mine that wanted to be clear that I am clear to Westerners that there is a difference in the distinction for this holiday between World War II and the Great Patriotic War. And my guests can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understand is World War II is all of the war around the world, and the Great Patriotic War refers specifically to Russia's front in the war. Am I correct, gentlemen?
Against the Germans.
Against the Germans. Okay, very good.
Because they fought the Japanese too, but the Japanese don't count.
Very good. Well, that's very interesting, Tim. Okay, so the Great Patriotic War is towards the Germans specifically. Okay, good. Well, Tim, why don't you go first? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have each guest introduce who they are, where you can find them in case you want to find them later, and where they're from, country and city, and where they have been able to witness Victory Day in Russia, what city or territory. Go ahead, Tim, you can start.
Real quick. So, Tim Kirby, for my serious stuff, it's Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore on Telegram. And if you're looking for more travel-related stuff, it's Tim Kirby's Travels on YouTube. And I'm from Cleveland, Ohio in the United States.
Very cool. And where have you witnessed Victory Day in Russia, Tim?
That part. So besides Moscow, in Volgograd itself. So one year we filmed it. So I was actually an active participant. As the part of the filming of it, they gave me a nice uniform, which I can maybe talk about more in detail later if people are interesting. And I was actually sort of part of the parade. However, I refused to shave my beard, so I was inside one of the vehicles because the beard is too valuable. And during World War II, they were apparently very militant about shaving.
Oh, okay. So you had to have a clean face to be authentic back then, or to meet.
Yeah. Apparently, if you were 60 years old or older, you could have a beard. Everyone who was 59 or younger had to shave, and they were very. That particular parade had. I was with a big group of historical reenactors, so it wasn't like the standing army that we have in Russia today. They were all reenactors, so everything had to be absolutely perfect. And apparently, even though I'm only 6'1", I'm a giant for people back then, so nothing fit. Like I had to find the biggest pair of boots they had, and sitting in the truck was difficult because the truck, the whole time I was like this because the ceiling of those trucks is so low because people were just vastly shorter back then.
So it would be hard for me. Yeah, it's funny, Tim,
it would be a neck breaker for you, man.
I remember watching that episode of yours where you were in costume and doing a little bit of role playing when I watched it from Florida when I never even thought I would ever move to Russia. So it's interesting to hear that. And I think that's why I thought of you for this show. All All right.
Maybe.
Well, next, Lars, why don't you tell us who you are, how people can find you, where you're from, and where you've seen the Victory Day celebration.
Yeah, my name is Lars. I'm running the Survival Russia YouTube channel, and I'm from Denmark originally. And I moved to Russia in 2011. I was here first time in 2010. And I'm living now in Kiev Oblast. It's like 1,000 kilometers northeast of Moscow. And of course, been to Victory Day, Victory Parade in Moscow. But now I'm on the countryside. Now I'm living in the forest, basically. So we have a very small village where our kids go to school and kindergarten and so on. And we, of course, had our own little victory parade there, of course, because every single small village in Russia would have a memorial from either the Second World War or the Great Patriotic War. We started in 1941, of course. And yeah, the kids are making some performances in old school, like uniforms from the 40s, and put some flowers on the memorials, you know, redecorate the memorial a little bit, and that's basically it from the small town Russia. But as I said, all villages smaller. There's only 700 people there now, right? At like 20 kilometers into the forest, we have a village which was quite a bit larger back then. There's not many people living there any longer, of course, but there's a memorial which has like more than 500 names of the fallen on it. So there was, I mean, every single Russian family, almost every single Russian has somebody who died in the Second World War at the front or in service, and this counts for our family as well, of course.
Yeah, it's hard to describe to Westerners, especially Americans who've been living, you know, where there hasn't been a war.
27 million died in Russia.
Right. Okay, well, Sam, how about you go next and tell us who you are, where you're from, where you live now, where you've seen Victory Day, how people can find you.
Mm-hmm. So my name's Sam, Sam's Russian Adventures YouTube channel. I've been in Russian since about 2004. I can't even remember the first time I came here, to be fair. I live in Vladimir, and I actually live at the moment in a village settlement on the edge of Vladimir. Yeah, it was interesting just listening to Lars when he spoke about the monuments. I was just going to touch on that because the monument in our settlement, like he said, every settlement, every village, every little area where even there's 5 houses, there'll be a little monument, and some of the monuments are fascinating. Really, obviously, I don't know if that's the right word to describe them. Obviously, because it's a monument for for eternal memory of the people that died in the war, right? But shouldn't say that word in the conflict. But
that's okay, man. Don't worry about it.
I find it really interesting even to go to these. I really love to travel around the little villages. I have a second channel, I won't advertise that now, but and I like to travel around villages and settlements, and some of the types of art that even went into creating these monuments is fascinating, really fascinating. And whenever you go, even if it's just a small village, there'll be fresh flowers there, really well maintained. Even if the village itself is in for example, an area where there used to be a collective farm, which is no more, and the village is kind of like slowly dying, the actual monument will be looked after immaculately. And what's interesting in if you go to the small villages, like the village that I'm living in, there's about 20-30 names on of the surnames of all the people that gave their life, that sacrificed their life fighting against fascism. But there's only like 5 families on the list. So it's like 5 or 6 people from each household, from each family that sacrificed their lives to fight against fascism, which is, that's just shows what a sacrifice the Soviet Union gave. So it's not like somebody knows someone that dies, like entire families from the whole village sacrifice themselves for the cause. So I live in Vladimir, so I'm on the edge of Vladimir, and it's not our military parade isn't like Moscow, of course. We don't have the kind of new technology on the parade. We'll have more kind of the old military equipment that would have been used at the time, or at that time in the fight against fascism, and something that's done. There's like a procession. There's a procession. People hold like a pole with a photo on it, and it's a photo of their relative who died or fought in the conflict. Yeah, so it's interesting. It means it's difficult to to explain to people outside of Russia just how much it means to Russians, because the sacrifice was huge. And obviously a lot of people will say, oh no, Russia just wants to do this to, drill in war propaganda or something. It's not that. The sacrifice that the country gave is huge, is absolutely massive. And the housing shortage that came after it, and so many things that were affected for such a long period, it really affected the country. So therefore, that's why it's still a really big part of Russia, and people celebrate the fact that people sacrifice so much.
Right. Sam, someone had a question about your helmet. They said, are you wearing a helmet? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so well, basically on my 40th birthday 5 years ago, I bought like 40 hats, and the rule was that everybody that came to my party had to wear a hat and then say a toast in the form of the hat they were wearing. And so I just remembered a few minutes before this live stream, and I legged it upstairs, and I've got a series of random hats that I'll be putting on. But I thought this was the appropriate one to start with, because it's kind of like the military kind of ish hat. Obviously, I've got no idea about military whatsoever. So please don't say to me, oh, this is an American hat or something, because I've got no idea. It just is in the style of something that someone in the army would wear. Okay,
that is a Soviet Union camouflage called KLMK.
Oh yeah, really? Okay,
wow.
So there you go.
Okay,
there you go.
Very good,
So
Lars.
Well,
now we have another hat that Kevin has. Kevin, why don't you tell everyone who you are and explain your hat?
Well, I'm Kevin Michelizzi. I hail from a little town outside of Duluth, Minnesota, and came to Russia first time in 2014. Spent a lot of time in a neighboring country, and seen a lot of May 9ths all over Crimea, the neighboring countries where I first saw May 9th. I actually met my wife in person first time on May 8th of 2006 in the city of Kiev. Mm-hmm. But the hat, this is the Soviet, Tovarish hat. Svetlana will have to correct me on this. I just bought it because I liked it. So, and since Sam's wearing a hat, he's changed his hat. I'm gonna have to go down and get my cowboy hat now. So just call me Tovarish.
Well, on the subject of hats, it's interesting. I bought a hat for my wife or children when I was at the Victory Day parade on Victory Day. And I didn't think I would, but there was a lady selling it. And I noticed people wear them everywhere. And it's not the same color as what I would see in America. It's more of a mustard green, I guess you would say. And it hit me towards the end of the day because I just saw these hats everywhere. Russians are buying these hats and wearing them with a little Soviet pin on it. Kind of like in America, I guess, and you could back me up on this or not, Tim, you would have like the three-horned, like American Revolution hats you might wear, like New England, right?
I think you might be onto something like that. It does have kind of like the equivalent of like a sort of 4th of July kind of feeling to it. Yeah, maybe something like that. And especially because even kids wear the hats. But to be honest, Russians online are a little bit concerned that as the veterans of World War II fade away, because there's not that many of them left, that the holiday might become a little bit Disney, a little bit trivialized. So, some people are not really big fans of the commercialization factor that kind of goes on. So, or at least that's what they tell me.
Comments? Very good. Well, I'm glad you said that, Tim, because I was thinking about that because I did 2 videos on Victory Day this week, and in the rehearsal video, I was talking about the fact that I realized that 4th of July and Independence it's important for Americans, but it's so long ago we don't have anyone left alive that we knew. Whereas for Russians, it's still acute, it's still sensitive, it's much more on their heart because they have relatives that knew people that suffered in this event, and we don't have that anymore in America. And so it was starting to hit me, and I was wondering, will this become, in 50 years, Russia's American Independence Day? Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I'm not saying Independence Day is not important, but I think it's fair to say it has less of an impact just because we're not personally touched in America anymore.
Well, Joe, I can tell you one thing. Unfortunately, we're living through a sort of, in some ways, a little bit of a replay of what happened during the Great Patriotic Conflict there right now. So there's new veterans being forged in blood every day who believe that they're fighting against a very similar worldview that their ancestors did. So maybe that's going to kick the can of down the road another 3 generations or so on.
Yeah, that's true. There will be a renewed.
We should.
Go ahead, Lars.
We should not forget that in Russia we have what is called the Immortal Regiment, Besmertny Polk, and that is where family members are parading in the thousands with the pictures of their fallen family members. So I don't see this, going to waste or being forgotten anytime soon. What happened during the Great Patriotic Conflict? Because, as I said, it's a thing. It's both a real living thing on the street. This Immortal Regiment and the Immortal Regiment also exists online, So you can go online and find our family members there who lost their lives during the during the conflict.
For the Westerners, describe what this is.
The Immortal Regiment?
Yes.
It is. I don't know if they appeared on the Victory Day, but there is a march in Moscow and in many other cities around in Russia at a specific day. I don't remember the date. But as I say, people come out literally in the thousands, especially in Moscow, and they will carry small photographs with them of their deceased family members from the Great Patriotic War. And as I say, this whole Immortal Regiment exists online. So all the pictures, we have scanned our pictures and sent them there. Everybody has scanned their pictures with the name and family members and date of birth and everything. So it is alive to this day. And as I say, I cannot see it being forgotten anytime soon, really, because it's a very, very important issue for almost all families in Russia.
Well, I hope you're right, Lars. That sounds that sounds like a good point. And since you brought that up, I do remember when I was living in Florida with my Russian wife, one year we went to this place where in our small town, there was a Russian memorial to the Great Patriotic War. And there were people with like wooden sticks, and they had photos like on poster boards. To the sticks.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
And they did a little march, and these were like black and white photos of people that served and suffered in the Great Patriotic War. And it was a small gathering. It's a small town. It was like less than 500 people. But that was my first experience learning about the Immortal Regiment and learning that this is what they do. And this was happening in a small town in Florida. You can imagine
and for somebody
over here.
I just wanted to say that for some of the viewers, if you have an ancestor who fought on the Allied side but wasn't Russian, you're still allowed to participate in the Immortal Regiment. So, like, for example, my grandfather was in the U.S. Air Force during World War II, and so when we filmed that episode in Volgograd, I was allowed to do the whole Immortal Regiment. I sent them a photo of my grandfather. They made the nice, a poster on a stick, as we've been referring to. The only thing you have to know is how to properly spell their name with the Russian letters and have a photograph of them, and you can participate, even if they were, American or British or French or whatever.
Wow. Very good. Very interesting.
So
That's
even though they
amazing.
claim,
Yeah.
even though they claim they canceled the Immortal Regiment this year, they actually did have it. So here it is.
So, what do you mean, Kev? Okay, we'll watch this.
So obviously this isn't in Moscow, but so same idea. They're marching Soviet flags. First, we have to have some neighboring countries in there, but they're holding the signs of their relatives. You can see the
So
black
this
and
is in
white signs
Canada,
up in
Kevin?
here. Yeah, this is Montreal. But it's just an example. Here's the people marching with the Soviet flags. They've got the pictures of their relatives.
Okay.
So
thanks
these
for that
actually
example,
happen
Kevin.
all over the place.
So you're saying that the Russian government canceled it, or Western countries canceled it? What do you mean?
Actually, the Russian government canceled it in Moscow because of security reasons.
Right. They didn't want people to be hurt by
Right.
protesters. Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Right. Yeah. People know what we mean, hopefully.
Yeah.
Guys, real quick, I want to tell you, please send us your questions. We've gotten some, not serious questions, not silly, but not serious. So feel free to ask a question. We are standing by. I mean, I have plenty of my own questions still here, but if you want to send in a question, I'm watching with half of one of my eyes. All right. Well,
So
go ahead.
I'd also like to comment on, the will this go away in the future, die down in the future. One of the things that I found with Russians is they ingrain this into their children. I did a stream on this yesterday, but this is teaching their children the history, what their grandparents and great grandparents fought for. And it also is about the family and family values. This is, we pull together as a family. Mother Russia, which it's now called, instead of the fatherland, it's the motherland. And this is like they should be treating their own family, their motherland, and fighting for their survival, fighting against things that are against the nation and the values that this country holds. So this is something that they ingrain in children from a very early age. When you're talking 4 or 5 year olds dressing up in the military uniforms, being taught what this Victory Day is about, how, they were fought for so they could have what they have, how people currently are fighting for their values and their country. So I think this is something that will go on for a long, long time.
Yeah. My 5-year-old Maxime is wearing the hat that I bought. He's running around the house wearing it. And actually, Christoph, who's 9, he saw a film in school, I think from 2018, a Russian film about the Great Patriarch War. And it's, I believe, a fictional story about a 5-year-old child who escapes the Germans and gets picked up by the Soviet army. And it's for children to watch, I suppose, because it's not too horrific, and it's very heartening. And we've been watching as a family because, very cool. Who is that?
This is actually one of my wife's students.
Oh, okay,
So-
very good. Very
Yeah,
good.
so he showed up for class wearing this, and here's another one just to show how young that they're.
Yeah, but my kids would dress up like that in the night.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Kevin, your friend Svetlana had a question I put on the screen. Are any of us able to answer this?
Mm-mm,
The
I can't.
USSR's most famous song in World War II was The Sacred War. In the US, it was Glenn Miller's In the Mood. What does that say about Russia versus America wartime experience? So I assume she's saying that the best song or the most sacred song in the Soviet Union was something about this meaningful event. And in America, it was something like
Well,
So does that
Joe, I
mean
don't mean to be a
indeed?
jerk here, but that's not really a question. That's just a form of antagonism. Like, how dare you have had your ancestors go through World War II in a much more comfortable environment? Yeah, you know, like my grandmother worked at a tank factory doing bureaucracy, and my grandparents on my other side of my family were too old, and they lived very pleasant lives through World War II. I'm sorry, Svetlana. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you're right to say that, Tim. You know, sometimes, you know, we are more fortunate in certain parts of the world, and so we didn't have that experience of suffering. And
So
you, yeah.
Sorry,
Go
go on.
ahead,
So these are
someone.
the most popular songs during that time. Is that what she means?
I assume so. Yeah. I
I mean,
assume
I
so.
think
She's
there's
saying
some-
the
there's-
most popular.
Yeah. So I think at the same time, you know, sometimes obviously the Soviet Union sacrificed a lot, right? But at the same time, I think, you know, sometimes an upbeat song helps to overcome like difficult times as well. So I don't think, you know, it's like on your birthday, you don't only listen to songs about your birthday, right? You don't only listen to birthday songs, you still listen to your favorite songs. And with any occasion, I think during the war, you know, different songs help different people to overcome difficult times and overcome, you know, situations, and to maybe feel a bit better about how bad everything is. So I don't think, the song, I don't think it's it's a bit of a strange comparison.
That's a good point, Sam.
Another thing is that the Soviet Union didn't really have a complete open-ended production of records. You know, during the Soviet Union, they sort of made just X amount of records regardless of sales. So also, it's really hard to determine what would be really the most popular song because there's no sales statistics that match up to like a free market economy. So that's also kind of another factor. So we could throw a monkey wrench in that question as well.
Right. So guys, I know we said it already, but people joined the chat late. So if we could just sound off real quick and let people know how many years we've been in Russia. For me, it's 2. Kevin?
Full-time, 4 years, but I spent a good amount of time here since 2006.
Tim?
Same thing since 2006, but solid.
Lars?
2011, 13 years straight.
Sam?
20 years. 20
Nice.
years, yeah.
Wow.
I thought Tim was going to say something like, 37 years or something like that.
Well, no, because I'm only 40-some, man. I would have been
It
a
just
baby.
seems like
so.
Tim has been the face of foreign person, or even now Russian citizen, or a long time ago Russian citizen in Russia, but the foreign face of Russia since I can remember.
Yeah.
So,
And I got lucky. As soon as that YouTube thing appeared on the horizon, I jumped on it, and I don't regret that decision. So I kind of got to the party early. So.
Well, my next question is going to be for Lars to start off with, and then you guys can all answer as well. But I want to say before I forget, Natalia is managing our comment section here, and she is the girl that was in the clip that I showed right at the beginning. It's funny, because I did a video about the rehearsal for the parade and then a video about the actual parade itself. And Natalia's in the rehearsal video and she's in the thumbnail. And so it's her pretty face. And that video is just the rehearsal video is doing way better than the actual parade itself video, which has no beautiful girl face in the thumbnail. So thanks to Natalia. And thank you, Natalia, for managing the comments for us tonight. But my question was for all of you, but I want to start off with Lars, because I think since he's from Denmark, it's more interesting to me. How do they remember World War II in your hometown, Lars?
In
or your
Denmark?
home country?
In Denmark?
Yeah, yes.
They put candles in the windows, but it's not really. It's a school holiday, but to be quite honest, it's nothing really, because we were occupied by the Germans the most of the time anyway. I think we lost 13 soldiers or something during the invasion, and that's basically it. So in Denmark, of course, it's being remembered and so on, but it have tapered off through the decades for sure. It's nothing really.
Okay. All right. So you're saying the sacrifice was low there. You're insinuating. So you're thinking because of that, there's not much of a
Denmark, but between the Germans, Denmark was called the whipped cream front.
Okay.
Everything was nice because then Danish government, they made this actually a little bit of a funny story actually, because when the Germans invaded, then Denmark had sort of like made an agreement with them that not to resist and so on, which Danish government do not want to admit to. So they had classified these conversations, or what we can say, on the government level for 50 years. And when the 50 years expired, they classified them for another 50 years. So basically, we cooperated with the Germans, and that's it.
Okay. What about you, Tim? You're from America.
Well, yeah, I don't want to steal your guys' thunder there, because there's probably a lot that's in general with America. But I would say that, at least remembering back to all my years in Cleveland, there really wasn't anything. I mean, there are some places in America that do have, parades that celebrate certain holidays. I can tell you for a fact that the biggest celebration in the history of Cleveland, from what I understand, there's 2.5 million people within Cleveland itself and like the greater Cleveland area, like the suburbs. And when the Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA championship, breaking the Cleveland curse, 1.5 million people showed up to the parade. So again, that kind of would make Svetlana, who gave us a question earlier, happy, because it definitely shows where our priorities are. LeBron James and the Cavs were the biggest celebration we've ever seen in Cleveland, by far.
Right. And Kevin, you are also from America, so can you add anything to what Tim said, or is it the same for you?
Well, in the big 20,000 person town of Cloquet, Minnesota I came from, they actually had a military parade.
Wow.
Took my wife there one May 9th, and we saw the military parade there. It consisted of, I probably got video somewhere, but it consisted of, like 4 Jeeps and 2 Humvees and, 1 machine gun and, some cheerleaders from the local high school.
Okay, well, that's encouraging to hear. So it was actually on May 9th. So there are pockets in America where they do celebrate on this day.
Well, it was actually May 8th. And people often say, why is there the difference in the dates? You have to remember when the Soviet Union marched into Berlin, it was on the 9th. But because you have the, moving the time back, it was the 8th in the North American countries.
Time zone thing. Okay, very good. Yeah, I mean, for me...
Didn't the Soviet citizens sort of hear about this May 9th in the morning, when the actual news sort of spread? I think that's how it worked. Maybe.
Makes sense.
Could
Makes
be.
Sense. Yeah.
Svetlana, hey, Svetlana, can you answer that?
Yeah.
And Svetlana also has another question coming up that I starred. So maybe Tim doesn't know Svetlana, but Svetlana is known for asking really envelope pushing slightly antagonistic questions on purpose.
As long as they're questions and not just antagonism, I got no problem.
Well, I mean, for me, I don't feel like there was much about World War II in a memorial sense. It's more of a romantic Hollywood story. As a child growing up in America, you know, seeing movies and it is taught in history, but it's almost exclusively taught from the American perspective of we came and rescued Britain, and then we led in winning the war. You know, which is a terrible thing for me to even say now. I just feel odd saying it because of what I know now. And it was interesting because when I first came here, I learned that this was celebrated, and I saw all the decorations and that there was a parade and just stuff in the stores to buy everywhere. And I was just shocked, and I was so amazed. And it was also convicting because I'm like, yeah, of course you would do that. And why doesn't the US do that? Why doesn't my country make this a massive holiday? Because it was a very, very big deal that this victory happened. I mean, the world was dark, and it almost got way darker. You know, we should be celebrating this, you know, and we just don't do it to that level in the US. So, you know, that's just my little speech. So then, Sam, you are from Great Britain. So I'm very curious, and I don't know the answer. How is this? How is World War II remembered for you? Because, of course, your country was much closer than the three of us on top here.
Yeah, so as a kid, also, I can't remember kind of any military parade or anything whatsoever. I was like thinking, I was glad you didn't ask me first because it gave me time to like write something down. Yeah, we have like Victory V Day or Victory in Europe Day, but I don't know anything. It might be on the news, and there might be something somewhere in some outside of some memorial somewhere. It's kind of merged together with World War One. I think we have like a Remembrance Day, Remembrance Sunday or something. I might be murdering that. I've got no idea about this stuff really at all. I don't think it's really drilled into us much in the UK whatsoever about this. It's not a public holiday as far as I know. And it's just, I know that we have the Tomb of an Unknown Soldier, because they just like one tomb like to represent all soldiers that died in war. And on Remembrance Sunday, on the Remembrance Day, people wear poppies, and the poppies was actually a symbol from the First World War, from the battlefield in Somme, in France, where the poppies grew, and these red poppies, and people wear them. And I think that's like a general kind of sign of remembrance for all conflicts, basically. But I can't remember ever anything kind of. I mean, in Britain we have our own kind of like, you know, history about this period and music, and you know, we have our own kind of big battles. In Britain, it was all about the defending Britain from the Nazi planes that bombed Britain for, you know, months. And that was kind of the big thing that Britain went through. You know, the people went through the bombing and all that stuff and lived through all that period. And a lot of our films and culture and things like that are based on people living. It was called the Blitz in London.
Right.
And a lot of films are made and set during that period and time and stuff like that. But what happens on the day, nothing. But it's funny because when in the UK, when they talk about Russia, I don't know if this is going to be is that going to be an next question? Shall I not speak about that now?
Go ahead. Yeah. Just
so
let it
how
flow,
they portray
man.
in Russia is they don't even really they'll say, well, Russia's doing a military parade to show the world their military might. That's what it's about. They turn it around, they twist it, they put the knife in and twist it around and stir it a bit, and they don't make it into a military parade to remember those that sacrificed their lives in the war against fascism. They turn it around into Russia is trying to show the world its military might. And I even saw in the newspaper it showed. See, I didn't actually see the military parade this year. Sorry. And one newspaper said Russia only had one military vehicle there because of it doesn't have any vehicles left. Now, so that's how they that's basically what they do. That's how they, sort of.
Sounds like what they say now, Sam.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what they were doing. Yeah, that's how they were doing it. They were just it's basically a way to say that Russia isn't celebrating victory against fascism. Russia is celebrating trying to show the world that it's a bully, and that's why they do it. That's what they say. Yeah.
No, it's a good point, Sam. I didn't think about it, but you're right, because what I knew about Russia as a child, a young adult, was not much, because I just didn't think about it because I didn't care. But I had an image of St. Basil's, and I had an image of tanks in Red Square.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was always fed to me through the news that there was this military parade in Russia because, like you said, they wanted to show their might. But it was not fed to me in the true sense that they were remembering, their victory over, a terrible, terrible situation. I'm choosing my words carefully.
Yeah, you're very good at choosing your words, and I'm just murdering it. So, yeah, I think there might be if you're watching this video after it's been, if it's not live and you're rewatching it, it might go quiet when I'm speaking. Don't worry about that. That's just, I've basically ruined Joseph's channel, basically, with my comments. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. And guys, don't be afraid to crosstalk and ask each other questions as we go through this, because we have a small amount of questions coming in because people are captivated by what Anglo-Saxons think of their country and their victory.
So, Joseph.
Yes, go ahead.
Is this the question you were referring to from Svetlana that you starred?
I started and I forgot about it, and I thought, I don't have time for that. That's a silly question. But yes, Tim, she also asked you this question. Do you want to give her some more of your passion?
I will. I'll tell her one thing, is that there's one stereotype about Russia that needs to be broken down because it's a lie. This amazing Russian woman stereotype, because that's the typical Russian woman sort of passive aggression action that you have to deal with when you deal with Russian women. So there you go. I'm actually on vacation at a rental place that's right by the sea. And although I'm not the richest guy in the world, I bet it's a vacation that you could never afford, my dear. So look at it that way. If two could be passive aggressive and petty, it's a petty fest. Let's all be more petty than Tom Petty together. Why not? Just keep going. Just keep with the Russian female shtick. Just keep going. It'll be a running gag for the video.
Very good. All right. Well, I do have another question from her, actually, a newer one. We'll see how this goes over with the group. For Russians, our security is paramount. Without understanding our suffering in the Great Patriotic War, one cannot understand why we see NATO expansion as an existential threat. Your thoughts, gentlemen? So I guess it might be barely a question, but there is a question in there. What are our thoughts on NATO? And Kevin, I don't know if you need to explain to us how we should respond to this with the algorithm, because I believe that it's better that we do not give an opinion on the SMO and on Putin, but I'm not sure. So how can we answer this question, Kevin? Or maybe you could answer it for us.
Yeah, I would say this in a very algorithm-friendly manner.
Okay.
I can understand, being married to a Soviet woman, I understand the suffering they went through. And I understand why they see NATO expansion as a threat. But the simplest way to answer this is to say, how would the United States feel if China put military bases and troops in Canada and Russia put military troops in Mexico and nuclear weapons in Cuba. And we actually have in the 60s the classic example of missiles being put in Cuba. So this is why Russia feels the way they do.
I'm very glad you said that, because if you don't have time to read a book, I'm a Hollywood guy. I would recommend watching the film 13 Days with Kevin Costner about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and just take that story, which happened, and flip it and reverse the roles and ask yourself, are we going through the same situation or not?
And it's funny, isn't it? Because when the Soviet Union did put missiles, or I don't know if they actually set up or not, but then they basically turned back, right? That was seen as like a win for the freedom of the world, for to stop. But then when it's something that the NATO country does, well, hang a second, is NATO a defensive alliance or an offensive alliance? Because what are they? If the Soviet Union did it, then it was seen as offensive when they did it. But when NATO does it, it's seen as defensive. But it's exactly the same thing, right? And so therefore, the double standards are incredible, aren't they?
Yeah, America was like, we will go all in for this if you guys do this in Cuba. We're not stepping back from this line, period.
Something that's actually sorry, just going to say one thing. Something that's very interesting about that is that the whole world knows about the Cuban Missile Crisis and the fact that the weapons were withdrawn from Cuba, but at the same time the American weapons were withdrawn from Turkey. Yes. So it was a win for the Soviet Union, but that isn't talked about in the whole world. It's just about, well done America for knocking back the Soviets, right? But at the same time, the Soviets won really big on that as well, because they got the American missiles withdrawn from Turkey, but that was never really talked about. But yeah, we could probably talk about. Sorry, Kevin, I'll let you go. We could talk about this for ages. I think I don't know if Svetlana, does she know about? Does she have the same opinion as us and want us to reinforce that opinion, or?
Oh, you mean should we flip the question back at her regarding the Cuban Missile Crisis? That's an interesting premise. We'll see if she responds and if I have time to put a comment up. And the other thing I thought when you were sharing about World War II, Sam, is I do think that it's a bit off topic, but I do feel like World War II kind of solidified our countries being on the same page again, like for sure, for all time, perhaps. Good or bad?
That it's a weird one for the UK, because the British Empire was the British Empire, and then America basically took over the world after, if that's the easiest way to say it, right?
Yeah, American
after World War II. So therefore, Britain feels that it kind of lost its way, and then America then took its way. Took its place.
Okay, so for you guys, it feels a bit awkward. Okay, I gotcha. Makes sense. So we have another brief rapid fire question that we can all answer quickly. Do you all speak fluent Russian? And if yes, how long did it take you to learn? I'll go first. Starting with me and working our way down. No, not at all. I've been here for 2 years. I take two 90-minute lessons a week. I have homework, but because of this show, I'm speaking English like all the time. It's a lot to edit and film and organize, and so it slows my process. But my 5 children and my Russian wife all speak Russian and English just fine. Kevin?
Well, I don't speak fluent Russian. I do speak enough to be able to get around, communicate with people, get across what I need, understand what they want, to actually understand about 80% of what people are saying to me, and can probably respond to about 60% of it relatively well. I have been studying Russia since about 2003, And my wife we speak English in the house, and her common statement to me is it's easier for her to speak English with me than it is for me to speak Russian with her.
Tim?
All right. Well, it's my turn. Well, I've hosted TV shows, radio shows, and even written a book in Russian. So yeah, I'm pretty good with it. How long it took to get good at Russian, I have no idea. I wasn't really paying attention.
Okay, Lars?
I don't speak fluently Russian, but I speak pretty well and understand Russian in speak and writing and so on. And it's a process. I'm still learning. So, but I speak quite all right. But it's a very, very, very complex language compared to Danish, German, Scandinavian languages, which are grammatically much simpler. Russian language is of a completely different construction, you can say. So it's an interesting language actually, but very complicated. If I may add something to the NATO question, just shortly, because I served in the Danish military before, during, and after the Soviet Union crashed, and during the conflict in Yugoslavia. And that's when you can say NATO countries, not as an alliance, but NATO countries, a coalition of the willing, started to go crazy. And, just look at what NATO member countries have done during the past 35 years or so, and you'll understand why Russians are worried.
Okay. Yeah.
If it's not too much for, excuse me if I ruined the algorithm and so on. But
hopefully you didn't. But yeah, whatever. I want to add to what you said, but we'll cut our losses.
Yeah. I was going to do the same, and I thought, no, okay, let's just
But I think Kevin said best. We can understand why there's cause for concern.
yeah.
And Sam. How about you with Russian?
Yeah, so I'm fine with Russian. Yeah, so I'm fine with Russian. I speak Russian okay. So I didn't really study. So when I first came to Russia, I actually came on a student visa to study Russian at a university, but I could not be bothered to go to any of the classes. So I went to like one lesson a month. So my grammar was pretty crap. My grammar's okay, but I don't know the grammar rules. I just know that's how you're supposed to say it. So yeah, so obviously all my friends are Russian, speak Russian every day. The worst thing about speaking Russian on YouTube videos is you have to then put the subtitles in all of them. It's really annoying. But like, yeah, so I'm fine with Russian. I think some people say, Sam, your Russian is incredible. And some people say, Sam, your Russian is awful. And I think, yeah, I'm fine with my level of Russian. Like, I don't study it. I can't be bothered to study it. I'm too lazy. It's harder when you're an adult as well. When you're young, like your kids, Joseph, they'll be fluent, and in a couple of years they'll be completely fluent, right? But like, I can't really be bothered to read a book on Russian grammar or anything. My level of Russian is fine. I, order things on the phone and read everything, and do everything in Russian. So, yeah.
Sam, I have a question just for you. It's a follow-up to what you said earlier.
Yeah.
D-Day, the Poppy Day of the All Soldiers Day. Is that what you meant?
So that's the thing. So basically, I have no idea at all. Basically, I know that we have a Remembrance Day. We have a thing called Remembrance Sunday. So we have that Remembrance Day, and that's the day with the poppies, I think. And then we have Victory in Europe Day. And I think that's a whole European thing. I don't know if the US even have that. I think the European leaders get together on that day or something, but I can't really remember. It was never what basically what I'm trying to say is there was never really a big thing. I know that the football players wear poppies on their shirts on the weekend where we have what's it called? not Victory in Europe, the other one, Remembrance Day. But I don't know, enough about it. So we could do with a US veteran in Russia on this video to help us.
Yeah. Well, I have a question now. Someone, Drew Wagner, paid $5. Thank you, Drew. And maybe we'll start with Kevin, because Kevin actually knew this guy. If you want to answer, Kevin, maybe you don't. Are any of you concerned about your safety after what happened to Russell Texas Bentley?
You know, I'm always concerned about my safety, but this is why I follow the advice that I'm given by some particular friends that I consult with here. I can't say too much because, you know, let's just say I'm a propaganda guy who came from the Department of Defense. I have particular friends here in Crimea and Moscow that appreciate my experience. They advise me on things I can and can't say. I'm not overly concerned about it because I follow their advice. The problem that my very good friend Russell Texas Bentley had was he had no filters on his mouth. And he wasn't afraid to offend his opponents. He wasn't afraid to offend the Russian government. He wasn't afraid to offend me. He wasn't afraid to offend anybody. And he spoke his mind. It was one of the things, if you knew him, you could love about him and hate about him. So me personally, I don't have a lot of concerns about it, but it is also why I do not ever on my show talk about, you know, issues with neighboring countries, conflicts there, or, you know, who actually owns Crimea. Reality is I was here when it was run by the Ukrainian government. I'm here while it's run by the Russian government. So, you know, you separate the people from the governments and you don't tend to have problems. Long answer for no.
Anyone else wants to take a stab at this question?
Yeah, I don't know the guy. To be fair, I've heard the name a few times. Don't really care. To be fair, like, I'm not trying to sound horrible, but like, as far as I feel, I'm completely safe here. I like it here. I like living here. I didn't move. Like a lot of people lately, you'll see, are moving to Russia because of something they don't enjoy where they live. I moved to Russia because I like Russia. I enjoyed living in Russia, and I like it here. I don't feel that I'm not any threat to anybody. In any country, I'm completely happy. It's a very safe place. I enjoy living here. If I was to break the law, then I would be concerned about getting myself in trouble. But I don't break laws, so what have I got to be afraid of? I have no fear at all. I feel completely free here and enjoy living here. And as long as you live in a country and you don't break the laws, wherever you live, then you're fine, aren't you?
Well, yeah, unless there's another group that is causing trouble illegally that you have to watch out for, I think is the concern, if that makes sense. Again, I'm choosing my words carefully. So, Tim or Lars, do you want to say anything about this or no?
I don't feel like. I don't really have any security concerns either. I mean, I moved to Russia before everything started, so to speak, and I don't have anything to do with political issues and stuff like that. But of course, that could be something in the back of the mind, but no. I feel perfectly safe here. Russia is a nice country, as Sam said, and so no, not really.
So anyways, I guess I'll make it my turn. This whole concept of safety is a very big philosophical discussion, but I don't want to completely sidetrack us. So long story short, Russell was unfortunately not the first person that I knew pretty well to be killed for mysterious reasons. The death of German activist Manuel Ochsenreiter, who was a good friend of mine, was sort of the first one. Then the assassination of Daria Dugina, who I knew Daria probably better than 99.999% of people on the planet. We spent a lot of time together. So this is sort of the latest death around me. So it's kind of one of these things where all I can tell people is people who really worry a lot about their personal safety tend to be miserable. If someone wants to take you out, they'll take you out. And you just kind of have to go with God, as they say in Russian.
Yeah. I mean, I to be honest, I am starting to think more about it now, and I have kids, and I want to be careful. But I think all I can do really is I don't announce where I'm going to be ahead of time. I think that's a good little precaution. But other than that, I don't, like you said, Tim, I'm not sure what else, we can do.
Yeah, that's a smart policy. Unfortunately, although I'd love to, I actually do the same thing. I don't really make it super clear just exactly where I am going to be tomorrow or the day after, which I hate doing, but I think it's helpful because with the example of Daria, it was very clear that she was going to be at this major public event. Everyone knew it, and look what happened.
So this is really weird because I've never really thought about it at all. And I'm now starting to feel like paranoid, like I should not. Like I really, honestly, I'd never considered like that someone would even want to. Who am I? I'm just a guy that decided to live in Russia because I like it here. Do you know what I mean? Like I've lived here for a long time, and I never really thought anything about it. Yeah.
I don't think you and Lars touch anything political at all ever.
Yeah, and I don't even think. Like look at. If you look at the US, they're constantly in some sort of conflict, right? But if you'd say to someone in the US, will you be scared to something? They were like, no, they don't even know who they're at conflict with, right? And I think, like, I don't even think about it. Obviously, there's lots going on in the country, and I support the president, whoever the president of the country is at the time. I'll support them. I'm a Russian citizen. I feel completely safe here, completely fine. And just live my life and do my thing and don't really think about it, to be fair.
Right. And again, just to be clear, Sam, the concern is not of
I understand,
the Russian government. It's a concern about neighboring countries.
Yeah, and I never thought about it. I heard there's a site, right? There's a site that you can put your name into and find out if you're being if you're on the hit list.
That's a Kevin
question.
About that?
Oh, okay. But yeah, we won't talk about that now. Maybe, yeah. But apparently you can put your name in and find out if you're on the hit list or not. So yeah.
And Russell was on the hit list.
Sure.
Yeah, Russell was on.
But the lists are gigantic. They have tens upon tens of thousands of people in. So it's a very, very broad category. But if we want to really break this down, if Russia were to lose a particular conflict, all of us would be completely fucked. Our lives would be over. But that isn't going to happen.
Yeah, so, I thought about that many times, Tim. That
I'm thinking to where
we want to be successful, but at the same time, if things go really bad, it's going to go really bad.
I've got a plan now to wear a mask of my other YouTubers and say really bad things about the neighboring country, so they get put on the hit list, and then they get they get put on the hit list, and obviously they're all gone from the world. But then I'll be the number one YouTuber in the country, So that's my new secret plan.
So before we move on from this, Joseph, I want to address something that Mr. Wonderful said here and kind of correct his misconceptions here. He said Tejas was in Donbass. Crimea is far safer than Donbass. It's safer because we're not getting shelled on a daily basis. As far as being safer, not really. And if you would like to discuss that further, you know how to contact me privately and we can discuss that. And the other thing is Mr. Wonderful's talking about him being tracked by British software. Reality is Texas was killed by extortionists in the Russian military. They were trying to extort him for money as the rich American. So that's reality. That is a known fact at this point.
And you could run into an extortionist in pretty much any corner of the world. Obviously, some
Yes.
places are a lot less, are more chaotic, let's say. And I would imagine a war zone is much more chaotic. Thus, it's probably easier to get away with that stuff, at least for the short term. But still, that could happen anywhere.
Yeah,
Right.
and the viewpoint is we're all rich Americans.
Well, yeah,
or
that
rich
stereotype is,
Danish or rich British, whatever. And you know, it's a fallacy. We're YouTubers. We're probably the poorest guys in the country.
Well,
Right.
I don't know about that. I would say we're kind of the middle class, no different from the rest of the middle class that's here.
Yeah.
Middle class Anglo-Saxons. Guys, we're going to end in about 25 minutes. So I want to get this question in for sure because it's important to the topic of today's video. And then it looks like we'll have plenty of questions to keep us busy from the audience. But I want to know from you guys, and I guess we can start with Kevin and just work our way across, the city where you witnessed Victory Day. So for me, I'll take Moscow, not you, Tim, because Moscow's all I got.
Okay.
You can take the city. What is that city like, and how was the celebration in general? I'm curious because one of the main reasons why I want to do this video is I want to show the West that Russia is not just special in Moscow, that they're doing special things all over. So I want to know, you know, what is your city like that you're in Russia where you witnessed Victory Day? I know Tim is not there right now, but
You're talking
Kevin,
2024 specifically?
huh?
2024 specifically?
No, it doesn't have to be.
Well, you know, I've witnessed it in a lot of cities. This year, you know, we celebrated Victory Day in Laspy, Crimea, which is outside of Sevastopol. We barbecued with a good friend of ours who owns a restaurant there, who I'm opening a Texas barbecue place with. So he didn't know what Texas barbecue was. He grilled the whole animal, and I made the Texas barbecue sauce and the North Carolina barbecue sauce. We fed a bunch of people in the restaurant and drank some cognac from Massandra from 1940. And you want to talk about some absolutely wonderful, wonderful drink. And this was a bottle one of the customers bought. It sold for 800,000 rubles.
Oh,
So, yeah, those are
that sounds
those
like
Americans. That's about $9,000.
Is it
like a version of the 4th of July, Kevin? But like, what did the city do? Is there a parade or anything like that?
You know, I'll go back to last year. We were in Yalta,
Sure.
and there was no parade. Now, there's usually a parade in Sevastopol and Simferopol. There were not this year. Yalta, the embankment is all decorated up. They've got attractions for the children. They usually bring Navy ships in. We could tour one of the Navy ships last year. That was not done this year. They did have the embankment all going. Lots of shashlik. Shashlik is the big thing here on any holiday. Usually there would be fireworks. We haven't had them here the last 3 years. This year, Aksanov, the head of Crimea, canceled fireworks again. Shoigu came out about a week later and announced that all Russian military bases in Crimea would have fireworks because he ordered it. And Aksanov came out about 8 hours later and said there will not be fireworks at any military bases in Crimea. So a little bit of that power play thing, but you know, typically what we've seen here is we've seen a parade in Sevastopol, fireworks, things like that. Things have been different the last 3 years for obvious reasons. It's a good thermal target.
Okay. All right. So Tim, how about you? How was it? Where in the what was the city again? Where you?
Volgograd.
Volgograd. Okay, and that's an
Yeah,
important
so the real-
hero.
Yeah, exactly. The most decisive location of World War II. So anyways, because it was at the epicenter of everything, the people who live there today, I'll put it this way, there's a very high attendance. Like a very large percent of the population
Wow.
actually showed up. So there were a lot of people. And like I mentioned before, maybe the major difference was that the historical reenactors played a very large role in the parade. There were a lot of reenactors, and they had vehicles and such. So you had kind of a mix of like modern soldiers and in the past. But like I think someone else mentioned the discussion, there weren't like Topol M intercontinental, ballistic missile launchers, like nothing particularly high tech. But the parade was definitely something that I think anyone would be interested in seeing. And the only difference is that it had a lot of historical costumes and weapons and even vehicles. So yeah, and also Volgograd has much nicer weather than Moscow. It's very dry and hot there, so it's definitely a nice place to visit in spring.
Wow. So it's more like a ×10 Civil War reenactment show.
Well, they do reenactments around the holiday. So the reenactors do actually do the real reenactment stuff, but that's not actually on Victory Day. It's either before or after. I forget how they organize it, but it's part of the thing. But Victory Day itself is kind of serious, and then that's something that kind of accompanies it with the other days off. The one thing I can say is that it's very dusty around there. So that's one thing. If you wanted to go to Volgograd, you should factor in that it's going to be really, really dusty everywhere you go. So yeah, but the reenacting stuff is neat. It's cool and it's loud. A lot of, I'll put it this way, a lot of gunpowder with no bullets flying. So fun stuff.
Wow. I do want to go there one day because it's a hero city and because it sounds like the #1 city in terms of, like you said, decisive victory for.
Well, yeah, go first off, YouTube deleted my old video when they took my old channel. So now it's your turn, man. Go there in spring, film Victory Day, 1 million views, no problem.
I think you've all forgot to mention, because you probably just don't think about it, because the viewers might not know that Volgograd is Stalingrad, right? Just so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and also there's a lovely, obviously they put a big museum there during the Soviet Union dedicated to the whole war, but mostly to the Battle of Stalingrad. So there's a Stalingrad history museum, and it's definitely worth your time to go see. So.
Right. I think there's a movie they did recently called Stalingrad with some actors people would recognize. A Russian film, though.
Yeah, it was
Lars,
like 5
how about
years
you?
ago.
How about me?
You, Lars? Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
as I
it
said,
like where you live?
I'm in a small village. I'm not even living in a village, but we have a village like 2.5 kilometers from here where the kids go to school and kindergarten and so on. So we had a parade. There's like 700 people there, right? So it was, of course, very small, but the percentage of participants must have been quite high. But just kids are doing some performance in the old school Soviet uniforms with the small pilotka and the Soviet pin and this and that. And that is basically how it is here. But I mean, I don't know if you guys can see. This is where we live.
Oh, okay.
This is the countryside. This is a real road. So that's how that is. But nonetheless, there was a parade. There was a performance. Unfortunately, I'm from a mobile device, so I cannot attach any photos and videos to show you guys. Maybe next time.
Lars, you've got a tank, right? Do you not drive your tank on these days on the military parade? Have you not been asked to?
Yeah, I actually do, but we traditionally use it to go to our annual camping trip deep into the forest. But no, the tracked vehicles, you're not allowed to drive steel tracks on federal road.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah. Okay.
So
they're not
Lars,
happy.
you own a tank?
No, not a tank. It's APC. It's an armored personnel carrier. But yes, I do.
Wow.
Mhm.
I assume it's not functional as a weapon. It's just a vehicle. Like they deactivate
Yeah,
the
yeah,
cannon or
yeah, of course. Very common vehicle.
In,
in Russia,
um,
actually.
in some places in Siberia, they actually sort of sell like demilitarized, kind of like light tanks, APC like vehicles to go through
Yeah.
like the wilderness.
Yeah, yeah, but that's the one I have.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very
GTSM.
impressive.
Yeah, you can just go and check the channel. The most recent the two most recent videos is from our 4-day trip to the forest in the tank.
And this is commonplace, you two are saying.
What?
This is common in Russia, in Siberia.
Well,
It's not uncommon. It's not uncommon for sure. Because here you won't get anywhere without a good vehicle.
Okay.
They
but it
have
costs
these
money.
they have these big trucks called Vizdirhod, like we can go anywhere.
Yeah.
And you like you can basically another one's something to do with swamps. I can't remember what's the swamp one called, but basically they're like any types of vehicles.
Bolotahod.
Yeah, and like basically there's these vehicles that you can go in swamps with, you can drive anywhere with, and there's a lot of them are there's lots of companies that make different types, and then there's people that make their own. That make their own out of various things, various different types of Very
wow. Cool. Okay, so Lars is a wealthy Russian country boy who owns his own APC.
I'm not I bought it many years ago. It's not super expensive or anything, actually.
Okay.
And it's economic.
Well, if I ever come see you, you'll have to show it to me.
Of course. It's right over there.
Right, well, Sam, how about you? How is Victory Day celebrated? What have you witnessed?
So I actually missed it this year. I didn't go to it this year. It was too cold. But I feel really bad actually. That's like a really bad excuse to say I didn't go to the parade because it was too cold. But basically, so we have a procession with the Smyrny Polk. I just realized the name is called the Smyrny Polk when Lars talked about it with the Poles with the
Smyrny, I think.
Oh, Smyrny, thanks, blimey.
Yeah.
Thanks. It was actually really interesting that Tim said that you can apply for the, you can send in your grandparents' photo and their name and made for them. Because I always wondered, how do they all get it made looking the same? So, right, I'm going to do that for next year.
The organizers do it somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so we have the procession, and then the procession leads to like the main Victory Square, where they have the veterans there. They'll have a few veterans, and they'll play some songs, and a few generals will sit in the tanks, and then they'll have basically there's a few kind of hymns and stuff on the main Victory kind of square area, and then there's traditional foods like traditional buckwheat porridge they'll have, and they'll have it for free, so anyone can eat it for free. It'll be served in the big military like tanks where they prepare the food, I guess, in the field, the same kind of way to feed a mass amount of people, and people can come and get a free bowl of what's it called, buckwheat porridge and something else. I think, don't know, I can't remember. Oh, there's probably morse. This like Russian it's grichka, but it's grichka. It's kasha, grichka, So basically, and then there's like a fruit juice drink, that people can have, and obviously there's like in the center, and then there's like shashlik, as Kevin was saying, and lots of plov and things like that. All the kind of Russian kind of street foods that they have on. Another thing that's very interesting is when we have festivals in Russia, and everyone else will probably know this as well. When there's a festival of any type, there'll usually be a section of people that give away this this porridge for free. If there's like a marathon going on or something like that, there'll be a few people dressed in uniform with a big tank where they prepare like a massive amount of porridge that they would have used to feed feed the army or whatever, and they give this away in all kind of events. Yeah, so I think it's
Yeah, I didn't even know what buckwheat was until I married my wife.
Either.
I mean, I heard of buckwheat as a flour that you use to make like country pancakes. But in case you're an American, you don't know. Buckwheat's like these little 3D triangles, little grain that you boil and you eat. And
I learned the name not long ago as well. I didn't know about it at all either. So yeah,
it's actually a nut.
Grain.
No. It's a nut.
Wheat grain of some kind?
No, it's a nut.
It's a nut?
A nut?
Yeah.
Really?
Huh.
Cool. Yeah, it has nothing to do with wheat. Actually.
Okay.
But it's very good. But guys, Joe, I have to run because I have to get the kids ready for bed and so on.
We're gonna end in about 10 minutes anyway. But thanks for coming on, guys.
I'll stick around for 10 minutes then.
You should have said something about the tank. You should have said, I've got to go because the tanks, I've got to take the tank back into the forest or something. That would have been like a really cool ending.
It's less exotic than that. I have 3 kids, right? So.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Lars.
Okay.
Guys, go look up
See you.
Lars
See you,
of
Lars.
Survival Russia.
You.
Well, Kevin, if you don't mind, because we're going to end in like 9 minutes or less, take a look and see if there's any relevant questions relevant to this topic. While I guess I can quickly share about Moscow in case you're a Westerner watching and you don't know. I mean, it is basically what you see is a giant, military parade through Red Square with military vehicles. And I believe technically one tank, although if you are not a military person, you will feel like you saw several tanks because there's lots of vehicles that look tank-ish. And there's vehicles that look like they have giant rockets on them. They have lots of soldiers marching. Well, as you saw in the clip that I showed. And Red Square is something like 3 football fields or something, or bigger. I don't know, but it's not that big of a space. So it's pretty much closed off. You can only watch it on TV unless you're one of the few people that get to attend. And so I didn't do it the first year I was here because I hadn't even been here a month. I was just doing whatever my wife said. We were moving in. We didn't really have time. Then the next year, I was so busy with the channel, I was only doing things that I felt I could do videos about. And I was afraid that this subject would be too much for the algorithm. So this is my first year going. And basically, I was able to, the best experience was filming the rehearsal because they rehearsed several times at night the week leading up to it. And that's the video with Natalia where we got to go at night and see the military vehicles roll out. And then for the actual day, I just spent the day running around Moscow trying to see whatever I could see, which wasn't a lot. I mean, I got to see the tanks exit.
Yeah, that's the downside of Moscow, man. There's like no good vantage points for normies. If you're not specifically invited to sit in the bleachers of the parade as a VIP, it's very hard to actually see much of it. So better on TV.
Have you done that? Have you been a VIP, Tim?
No, not yet.
No?
I think maybe one day. I've gotten my share of VIP invitations to a lot of events, but not that one. Not yet.
Because I started thinking maybe one day I'd be a VIP. But if you haven't been
maybe.
a VIP, I don't want to be a VIP.
We'll see.
But the videos were fun and they're entertaining. I mean, I got to see a lot, and I ended my victory parade video going to see the NATO the captured NATO tanks. That was also interesting. And
it's been really big this year, probably because of the NATO tanks as well. Is that one of the reasons that it seems to be a really popular topic on YouTube? Because I've filmed quite a few times the military parade, and it's never really been a thing. And I think perhaps the fact that the NATO tanks a week before it hit the news, perhaps it pushed it out to a larger audience, the whole military parade as well. Maybe
that was one of the thoughts in my head is there a bigger celebration now in Russia since the special military operation? I wondered. So what's this on the screen here?
I was just answering a question without interrupting the thoughts.
Oh, okay, cool.
So Lucas was asking, he won't, a channel to learn Russian for Polish native speaking. Real Russia Club is a good one because she does a lot of very basics. She focuses on vocabulary, and she has a whole series of slow Russian speaking where she speaks like poems and stories, talks about movies and things in very slow Russian. So you can really pick things up.
Polish is very similar. So
yeah, it's
very
insanely
to
similar.
Russian.
To be honest, what he really just has to do is sort of relearn a lot of habits, because the whole thing, like in Russian, like chitat, well, in Polish it's I think it's chitach for the first off, but then like chitayu, chitaєш, chitaєте, chitayet, what that whole how the words in the Polish it does the same thing, only it's a little bit different, right? And so Polish is a great starting point because it's the same cases for the most part, and the same, like, verbs changing, like było is było in Polish or whatever. It's all really, really similar. It's similar but different. So just open up your charts, man. Look it up, those case charts, and how the words decline, and start trying to memorize this other way of doing it, and you'll pick it up real quick.
And you are Polish, correct, Tim?
Majority Polish, Russian, Ukrainian, but Polish
Okay.
the number one position. All Slavic, baby.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, Kevin, that wasn't really a topic relevant question, but whatever. I'll let it go.
That is why I put it up there the way I did. So the other ones required discussion.
So we should give our closing thoughts, I think, unless there's anything urgent, Kevin, you think we need to address that came in. Anything or no? I guess that's a no.
I don't think so. We've got.
So, Tim, what are your closing thoughts about Victory Day in general, I guess?
Well, for anyone who follows me on Tim Kirby's Travels on YouTube, my travel channel, I would think that they might want to visit Russia on Victory Day, because it's a holiday that people take serious. It is a big celebration. Like I said about Moscow, it's a little bit hard to actually see it. But if you go to sort of like let's just say, second-tier city in Russia, you might really get to enjoy a unique holiday environment and do something really cool. And generally the weather in May, with the exception of this year, generally the weather in May is pretty good. So I would really recommend coming and visiting Russia specifically to see Victory Day. As a foreign person, you'll probably be pretty impressed and get inspired.
I agree. So, guys, Tim's links are in the description as well as everybody else's down below. So be sure and find these guys' channels. So, Sam, any closing remarks from you about Victory Day?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting it's difficult to start with to put yourself in the mindset of Russians, even if you've lived here a long time. It's something you learn. It's something that you kind of like is drilled into you. It's kind of one of those things that you grow up with, I think, more. So having grown up in the UK, I still don't. I understand the Russians, how much this celebration of celebration, is that the right word? Celebration of victory and remembrance of the people that died fighting fascism, perhaps is the best way to say it. How much it means to them. Still difficult for me to put myself in the shoes of Russians, even though I've been here a long time. I understand how much it means to them, and it's interesting to see and to take part in. And I think the one thing I'd say is every time you see these, you'll see it on the news, you see the Moscow military parade, and it's not just remember it as what it is. It's a day of remembrance. It's not a, hey, we're doing a parade to show that we're going to invade somewhere, because that's just what you're told, right? But that isn't the truth. So it's we had a little talk about the whole NATO thing, and we said that if you want to see it for how it is, but the thing is, most people don't see it for how it is because they see it for how they're told it is, right? But just see it for what it is. It's a day of remembrance. Okay, so it's a great. you know, in lots of countries around the world, they're removing monuments that events from history that somehow would not be accepted in today's society. But history is history, and history should be celebrated, and sacrifice that the Soviet people gave. Yeah, it's incredible. Like I said, on the memorials, you'll see the memorial for my village here. You know, there's like 5 families on it, 30 names, 5 families, entire families sacrificed. In the UK, we lost about 500,000, I think, citizens. Right. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's a huge thing in Russia, and yeah, if you get to experience it, come in and experience it. And as Tim said, if you've got a grandparent that took part in the war, then you can register their name, and you can put them on a photo and carry your stick on the parade and join everybody else and go and take part in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sam, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean it, and I have 5 kids, so I have more than Lars. So I'm also going to have to wrap this up, and we passed our 1:30 mark. Kevin, you have anything you really need to say?
No, I think the guys pretty much covered it. You know, learn the history, remember it. Tim's old buddies, Russia Beyond, they have a good article on the meaning of Victory Day. I suggest people go out, they read it. It will give you good background on it and a lot of good input on what the holiday is all about.
Very good. Well, guys, thanks so much for coming on. I really
thanks very much.
I wanted to learn, you know, what Victory Day is all across Russia, and you guys helped me do it. And everyone, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out these guys' channels, and have a good night.
Thanks.
Later on, gents.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.